My name was Omar. I was a Quran teacher in the heart of Mecca, a place revered for its sanctity. Respected, even feared, I was the embodiment of discipline, known for leading prayers with unwavering devotion. But beneath that austere facade, my soul was crying out in silence. A profound emptiness enveloped me, one that the constant recitation of verses could not fill. In the stillness of my late-night prayers, whispers of doubt crept into my mind. I began to wonder, was I truly following the path of truth, or had I become a mere puppet in a grand illusion? It was then, during an intense night of devotion, that everything changed. I encountered a light so brilliant it shattered the darkness within me, a vision of Jesus, calling me by name. In that moment, the world around me faded, and I was thrust into a spiritual warfare unlike any I ever knew existed. I saw how forces of control had woven themselves into the fabric of religion, manipulating souls through fear and dogma. The realization struck me with fury. I had been serving a system, not the God of love and redemption. At that very instant, I knew my life would never be the same. I stood at a crossroads, torn between the oppressive weight of tradition and an awakening that beckoned me towards freedom. The war within me ignited a fierce battle for my soul, a clash between loyalty to my past and the undeniable call of my newfound truth. What if this was more than just my struggle? What if others too were searching for answers while trapped in the same spiritual darkness? Today, I invite you to join me on this journey as I unveil the events that followed that profound encounter, revealing not just my escape, but a message of hope for countless others lost in the shadows. Before we dive deeper, please share where you're watching from and what time it is in your corner of the world. I genuinely want to connect with you. And if you find yourself resonating with this truth, subscribe to Truth from Beyond. For those who love Jesus and long for revelation, this channel holds the promise of understanding that transcends the familiar depths of despair, one where freedom awaits. In a conservative neighborhood in Mecca, life unfolds under the weight of strict Islamic traditions. The air is thick with reverence, yet there's an undercurrent of social pressure that permeates every aspect of daily life. The mosque stands as a beacon, its call to prayer a reminder of our obligations, to adhere, to submit, to follow. As a local engineer, I had always navigated my professional career with the same dedication I applied to my faith. I upheld my duty to my family and my community, but beneath this facade lay an unsettling restlessness. Each prayer I offered felt more like a performance than a genuine expression of belief, a ritual executed out of expectation rather than true devotion. During the sacred period of Hajj, my emotional turmoil reached a breaking point. Surrounded by throngs of worshippers, I felt a sense of connection, yet, paradoxically, an even deeper isolation. The atmosphere buzzed with fervor, but a quiet voice within me began to stir doubts I had long repressed. Why was I here, participating in these rituals with a heart so burdened by confusion? As I performed my prayers, that voice grew louder, urging me to question the very foundations of my faith. It was in the midst of this sacred devotion that everything changed. In an abrupt moment, I suffered a sudden collapse. Darkness enveloped me, and I had the disorienting sensation of being pulled from my body. As I drifted away, I found myself in a vast, luminous expanse, a desert filled with light and sand that stretched endlessly toward the horizon. I felt a sense of awe and fear. I was neither here nor there, suspended in a state beyond physical existence. And then, I saw him, Jesus. His presence filled me with warmth and compassion, a stark contrast to the internal strife I had endured. "You've been seeking truth," he said, and his voice resonated deeply within me, awakening something I had buried for far too long. Jesus began to unfold revelations that shattered my previous understanding of faith. He illuminated the hidden agenda of those who manipulate belief for their gain, exposing the deception that kept people in a state of blindness. I witnessed visions of how the elite used religion to foster division and conflict, showcasing the battles waged in the name of God. Each revelation struck me like lightning, opening my eyes to the stark realities of political and societal manipulation. The truths I encountered illuminated the urgency of the spiritual war, a battle for souls caught in the grip of fear and ignorance. As I returned to consciousness, the weight of those revelations clung to my mind, filling me with a sense of purpose. I no longer saw my life as merely an extension of tradition. I recognized that I had a calling to confront the deception endemic in my society. The shock of my experience bore down on me, stirring a fierce desire to share this newfound truth, despite the potential backlash I might face. I felt empowered and terrified all at once. The urge to break free from the chains of dogma and to illuminate the path for others began to consume my thoughts. I understood now that my awakening was not just personal. It was part of a collective mission to expose the hidden agendas that had shackled so many. The protagonist, Omar, a 30-year-old respected Quran teacher, embodies discipline and dedication, yet I feel a growing emotional emptiness deep within me. Each day I wake up early, preparing myself for the duties that await me, leading my students through lessons and guiding them in their faith. On the surface it seems I have it all together, but inside there's a persistent nagging sensation that something essential is missing. The rituals I once found comfort in now feel like obligations, a series of motions I perform without truly engaging my heart and soul. Every prayer seems to echo back to me from the walls of my mind, leaving a hollow resonance that lingers. As I stand before my students, imparting knowledge that has been passed down through generations, I can't help but watch their faces filled with devotion. They cling to every word I say, and a part of me envies their certainty. They haven't yet experienced the creeping doubts that plague me, doubts that have intensified in recent years. Lately, I've started to question the very tenets I've upheld for so long. Is this relentless adherence to tradition genuine faith, or merely blind obedience? Each question sends ripples through my spirit, creating an internal conflict I can no longer ignore. Things took a drastic turn during a particularly intense moment of prayer in Mecca, a place where I expected my faith to solidify. It was a time of deep reflection, and as I stood amongst the throngs of worshippers, I felt the weight of expectation pressing down on me. Suddenly, as I reached for a deeper connection with God, my heart raced, and I experienced an overwhelming wave of dizziness. I collapsed, and in the moments that followed, I spiraled into unconsciousness, entering a realm that was both disorienting and transformative. In that state, I found myself in a vast, brilliant desert illuminated by an indescribable light. The air felt different here. It was thick with both silence and a palpable energy that made my soul tremble. Then, as if drawn by an unseen force, Jesus appeared before me. His presence radiated warmth and an understanding that felt profoundly accepting. "Omar?" He called my name, and in that moment, every doubt, every burden began to lift away. Jesus spoke to me, revealing truths about the hidden agendas of those who manipulate faith for their own purposes. I saw visions of how the elite use religion to control not only individuals but entire communities, perpetuating a cycle of deception that leads to division and conflict. As he unveiled these revelations, I began to understand the spiritual war one had been participating in, a battle for the truths that are constantly under threat. I witnessed the suffering inflicted upon innocent lives, the wars wielded in the name of God, and the deepening societal rifts that separated us from one another. Each vision gripped my heart with urgency. I realized that to remain silent was to condone the very deception I had sought to escape. I awoke suddenly from that experience, my mind racing and my heart pounding, and I knew my life would never be the same. The truths I had encountered surged within me, illuminating a path that demanded action and a commitment to sharing what I had learned, no matter the consequences. The deep sense of purpose that surged through me was both exhilarating and terrifying, urging me to step forward into the light, even as shadows of fear loomed large. As I participated in the prayers during Hajj, an overwhelming sense of void began to seep into my heart. Surrounded by fellow worshippers, their fervor palpable, I felt a profound disconnection that I could no longer ignore. Each bowing and prostration became mechanical, as if I were performing for an audience rather than engaging in a true conversation with God. While the others around me seemed immersed in their faith, I found myself silently questioning the validity of my beliefs. Was I truly honoring the tenets of Islam, or was I merely adhering to traditions that felt increasingly hollow? At night, when the world fell silent, those doubts would morph into vivid dreams. In these dreams, I was drawn to a mysterious light, an ethereal glow that pierced through the darkness of my subconscious. I couldn't see its source clearly, but I felt an irresistible pull toward it, a sense of hope nestled within that light. And there was a stranger, a figure who seemed to emanate warmth and acceptance. Each time the vision appeared, I felt a glimmer of awareness, a hint that perhaps there was more beyond the confines of my current understanding. But the nagging fear of repercussions kept my doubts hidden from friends and family. They would never understand the struggle I faced. I couldn't risk their disappointment. The tension of this internal conflict began to weigh heavily on me. I would sit in prayer, my lips moving through the familiar words, while my heart wrestled with a mixture of despair and hope. I felt as if I was caught in a storm, battling against the tides of expectation from my community, the very people I cared about deeply. The fear of being judged for my growing uncertainty, for questioning the faith that had been the bedrock of my life, became a suffocating presence. How could I speak about these dreams and the light that beckoned me when the very thoughts might brand me a heretic? As days turned into weeks, I could sense a shift happening deep within. The discomfort of maintaining a facade grew unbearable. I questioned my role as a Quran teacher. Was I genuinely imparting wisdom, or simply perpetuating a cycle of deception? The truth became a shadowy figure, lurking in the corners of my mind, whispering to me about the hidden agenda of those in power. The elite, who manipulated beliefs for their gain. I began to wonder if I was part of the deception, someone helping to uphold a system that didn't align with my evolving understanding of truth. Then came the turning point, the moment that would forever alter my path. On one particularly restless night, in the depths of my sleeplessness, the figure from my dreams returned with clarity. Jesus stood before me, calling my name with love that transcended time and space. As he revealed profound truths, the manipulation of faith, the social divisions perpetuated to keep us all in line, I felt the weight of the world lift. It was as if I had awoken from a deep slumber, and the awakening compelled me to embrace the truth, no matter the cost. The spiritual war was real, and I was ready to stand against the tides of deception, to forge a new path illuminated by the revelations I had received. During an intense night of prayer with the moon shining brightly over the sacred city, I found myself enveloped in a profound stillness. As I knelt on the soft ground of the holy mosque in Mecca, the weight of expectation bore down on me. I was caught in a spiritual war within myself, battling between my lifelong devotion to Islam and the growing doubts that haunted my thoughts. I bowed my head, fervently wishing for clarity as I recited the familiar prayers, yet behind my closed eyes, frustration and uncertainty brewed. As I entered into a deeper state of prayer, I suddenly felt a shift in the atmosphere. A warmth began to envelop me, pulling me away from the confines of my struggle. It was then that I heard the voice, clear, powerful, and filled with love, calling my name. Omar. The sound resonated through me in a way that felt as if my very essence was being touched. The voice belonged to Jesus. When I opened my eyes, I was taken aback by his presence, radiant and illuminating the darkness surrounding me. The light that emanated from him was unlike anything I had ever experienced, cutting through my confusion and fears like a sword through mist. In that moment, the revelations began to unfold. Jesus spoke to me of the hidden agendas that manipulate faith and control communities. I watched as layers of deception peeled away, revealing the truth behind the various systems of religious control that existed in the world. I saw the elite orchestrating spiritual narratives, wielding religion as a tool for their purposes. Fear, division, and conflict masked as divine will. It left me stunned, realizing that I had been unknowingly complicit within a system that perpetuated ignorance and hatred. This was the awakening I hadn't known I was yearning for, the clarity that cut through years of imposed beliefs. With the unfolding of each revelation came an urgency to act. Jesus urged me to awaken others who lived under the heavy burden of deception. The visions showed me the consequences of remaining silent, painting stark images of the suffering inflicted in the name of faith. I witnessed wars and divisions, not just in distant lands but within my own community, fueled by the very beliefs I had been raised to uphold. It was a heart-wrenching realization that ignited a fire within me, a calling to confront these ingrained attitudes, to break free from the chains of dogma that bind so many. As I returned from that profound experience, I felt the weight of my new mission pressing down on me. The truth I had encountered demanded to be shared, regardless of the repercussions. I understood that the path ahead would be riddled with challenges, particularly from those who might not understand my transformation. The fear of rejection from my family and community loomed large, yet the light of Jesus within me urged me to move forward. As I stepped back into reality, I knew my journey had only just begun, and I was ready to engage in the spiritual war necessary to reveal the truth and offer others a chance at their own awakening. Attempting to share my revelation with my family felt like walking into a storm. After my encounter with Jesus during Hajj, I needed to express the truth that had ignited within me. I believed that the love and understanding I received could also resonate with them, offering them the same awakening I experienced. However, as I gathered my loved ones, their faces revealed something different. Confusion quickly morphed into disbelief and hostility. Hearing me speak of my revelations, they labeled me a heretic, a blasphemer, abandoning the very faith that had shaped our family's identity for generations. The weight of their rejection pierced through me, twisting my stomach in knots. I felt a deep-seated guilt, questioning whether I had betrayed the very roots that had nurtured me. My parents had devoted their lives to the principles they cherished, and here I was, challenging the core of their beliefs. Each word I spoke felt like a dagger, turning their love into disdain. The emotional conflict waged within me, a reflection of the larger spiritual war one had begun to truly comprehend. Could I continue on this path of truth and risk losing everything I had ever known? Days turned into weeks, yet the shadows of isolation clung to me. Each encounter filled me with a growing sense of dread, punctuated by the weight of what I could lose. I still carried the hope that one day my family would see my newfound perspective as authentic and valid, yet that hope often felt like a fragile thread, fraying at the edges. A longing to return to the comfort of the familiar tugged at my heart, mixing with the desire for liberation from the deception I had uncovered. It was exhausting, torn between the love I felt for my family and the convictions that refused to let me turn back. During this tumultuous time, I found solace in the community of fellow seekers I had connected with. Each meeting strengthened my resolve, affirming the path of enlightenment I had chosen. Together we delved into discussions about the hidden agendas that perpetuated societal control, acknowledging the elite's manipulation of faith and the impact this deception had on international conflicts and divisions. The realization that we were not alone in this battle stirred a fire within me. We had to unite our voices and push back against the darkness that stifled our awakening. Yet, even in the company of others, the internal struggle persisted. The emotional scars of my family's rejection haunted me. How could I reconcile the pressing urgency to reveal the truth with the personal pain of lost connections? Each day was a reminder of what I had chosen, and the fight for my spiritual awakening ran parallel to a longing for acceptance. In this spiral of emotion, I understood that the journey ahead would be daunting, but it was one I had to pursue. The truth was out there, waiting to be shared, and I felt called to stand firm, even when the path forward was clouded with uncertainty and fear. In secret, I began to explore the Bible, feeling the weight of my decision with each turned page. It was a silent rebellion against the confines of my previous life, a quest for understanding that felt both exhilarating and terrifying. The more I delved into its teachings, the more I connected with the stories of others who had walked a similar path. I watched countless testimonies from ex-Muslims, and with every shared experience, I could sense the echoes of my own struggles. Each tale resonated within me, illuminating the corners of doubt and confusion that had long dwelled in my heart. Finding a small Christian community that embraced me felt like discovering a hidden sanctuary. In their presence, I felt a sense of belonging that had eluded me for so long. They welcomed my questions, my fears, and shared their journeys of awakening with open hearts. But along with this newfound acceptance came a gnawing terror. What if my family found out? What if my community turned against me? The stakes felt incredibly high, and I often grappled with the implications of what it meant to leave behind the life I had known. Yet in my quiet moments of prayer to Jesus, I began to feel an unexplainable peace wash over me, a reassurance that I was exactly where I needed to be. As I continued to pray, the sense of connection deepened. It wasn't just that I was seeking refuge from the weight of my past, but that I was beginning to experience an authentic relationship with Jesus. The prayers became more than mere words. They transformed into a dialogue that filled me with hope and clarity. Each time I reached out, it felt as if he was guiding me, helping me navigate the complexities of this spiritual war. One was now consciously fighting. The burden of isolation softened as I realized I was part of a larger movement, a community of believers striving for truth against the backdrop of manipulation and deception. There was a palpable urgency in my heart to share my newfound understanding with others still bound by the chains of tradition. I began contemplating how many were grappling with the same doubts and fears I had endured. The revelation of how the elite used misinformation and fear to maintain control was both alarming and freeing. It became clear to me that the awakening I sought was not solely for my benefit, but part of a calling to awaken others. I envisioned gatherings filled with discussion and shared revelations, a space for the lost to explore the truth and break free from the hidden agendas that had kept them shackled. Yet, as I moved forward in my journey, I still felt the shadows of fear lurking close. I could sense the potential for backlash from those who had previously respected me, from family who believed my departure from Islam was a betrayal. This fear lingered heavily, but I knew that each step I took toward unveiling the truth brought me closer to my purpose. The love I felt for those still caught in the web of deception compelled me to confront my fears head-on. I was ready to speak out, to stand firm amid the spiritual war, hoping to bring light to those still wandering in darkness, one awakening at a time. As I reflected on my experience, it became abundantly clear that this was not just a personal awakening, it was a profound calling, a pivotal moment that demanded I share my story with the world. The encounter with Jesus during my prayers in Mecca had shaken my very foundation, and I could no longer hide from its implications. I felt an overwhelming compulsion to confront the truth, my truth, and to awaken others to the realities I had uncovered. The urgency of this mission echoed in my heart, propelling me forward even as fear of the consequences loomed large. In the days following my revelation, I often found myself wrestling with the potential fallout. I was acutely aware that breaking the silence surrounding my beliefs could lead to devastating consequences. The thought of being labeled a traitor by my community, the very people I had grown up with and loved, haunted me. Yet, the fear of remaining silent felt increasingly unbearable. I had tasted the light of truth, and it was a gift far too precious to keep hidden. This internal struggle became a spiritual war, where the fight for my own awakening mirrored the collective battle against deception that was wreaking havoc in society. I began to share my experiences with a small, trusted circle of friends who had been grappling with their own spiritual doubts. Together we discussed the hidden agenda of the elite, the manipulations at play within religious institutions, and the way those in power wielded fear to control the masses. It was liberating to voice these thoughts out loud, and each shared testimony ignited a flame of hope within me. As I listened to their stories, I realized how interconnected we all were in our struggles, each of us caught in a matrix of deception that undermined our spiritual journeys. The tension surrounding my mission intensified as I became more vocal about my beliefs. I knew that I could face public backlash, ostracism, and even hostility from those who still clung tightly to their faith. But in my heart, I felt called to be a catalyst for change, to encourage others to seek their own truths, even if it meant risking my own place in the community. The spiritual war we were engaged in was not one of violence, but of awakening, a battle for consciousness that transcended religious barriers and united us in a common search for clarity. With each conversation and each moment of vulnerability, I felt an exhilarating rush of purpose. My perspective shifted from that of a fearful follower to an empowered advocate for truth. Jesus had not only called me by name, he had illuminated a path I was meant to walk. The journey ahead would undoubtedly be fraught with challenges, but I was no longer afraid. I felt the weight of the world's struggles on my shoulders, and I was determined to rise to the occasion, to not only share my awakening but also to help others in their own spiritual wars, illuminations leading us out of darkness and into a future filled with hope and truth. Finding the courage to leave my home felt like stepping into the unknown, but I knew it was a necessary leap toward my spiritual journey and freedom. The days leading up to my departure were filled with turmoil. I had been wrestling with my beliefs for far too long, and in my heart, I felt the call of Jesus urging me to break free from a faith that no longer served me. One evening, as the sun set over the horizon, I made a symbolic gesture to mark this pivotal moment in my life. I took my traditional clothes, the garments that had bound me to my past, and set them on fire, watching as the flames engulfed the fabric, each spark representing the release of my former identity. It was liberating and terrifying all at once. As the smoke billowed into the air, I felt lighter, almost as if the weight of years of tradition had finally been lifted from my shoulders. I understood that this act was more than just a rejection of clothing. It was an affirmation of my desire to embrace truth and authenticity. In that moment, I became committed to planting the seeds of my evangelistic mission, driven by the revelations Jesus had given me during my near-death experience. I wanted to share the light I had found in the darkness with others who might still be battling the spiritual war raging within their hearts. In the days that followed, I began to venture into new spaces, communities that welcomed those seeking different paths. It was a whirlwind of emotions. The exhilaration of newfound freedom mingled with the pain of leaving behind everything I had known. Each encounter brought me closer to individuals who understood the complexities of questioning faith. Together, we explored the hidden agenda behind organized religion, unveiling the mechanisms of control that had kept us all from experiencing our spiritual truths. These conversations stirred something deep within me, a calling to advocate for others and challenge the deception that had long existed. Through these discussions, I came to realize that the revelations I experienced were not merely personal. They echoed the larger struggle faced by many caught in the grip of outdated customs and unyielding beliefs. I spoke passionately about the urgency of awakening, emphasizing how the elite had often manipulated spiritual teachings to create fear and division within communities. Each time I shared these ideas, I could see the light of understanding flicker in the eyes of my listeners. It fueled my determination to keep spreading the truth, no matter the potential risks that lay ahead. As I continued this journey, the echoes of my past were never far behind. I still carried the weight of family and friends who misunderstood my transformation. Their reactions often haunted me. Fear, anger, and confusion clouded their acceptance. But amidst the chaos of emotions, there was a flicker of hope. I believed wholeheartedly that my story could foster change, awakening others to their own truths. The path before me was daunting, but the mission to share the light of Jesus and expose the hidden deceptions of our world propelled me forward, igniting a fire in my spirit that refused to be extinguished. Years later, I transformed into an active evangelist in a new community, my journey fundamentally reshaping who I had become. What began as a painful departure from my past evolved into a mission driven by a profound sense of purpose. As I shared my testimony with others, I witnessed the truth stirring within them, igniting conversations that delved deep into the spiritual war we all face. I had once claimed the title of a Quran teacher, passionately imparting knowledge to my students. Now, I found myself standing at the forefront of a movement aimed at awakening those still trapped in the layers of deception that had held them captive for so long. The power of my story resonated in the community I had come to cherish. Each time I recounted my near-death experience and the transformative moment when Jesus spoke my name, I could see the flicker of hope ignite in their eyes. My words carried the weight of revelation, the understanding that the elite manipulate faith to maintain their grip on power, sowing discord and division. I felt compelled to shine a light on the hidden agendas that sought to control and suppress the truth, not only to free myself, but to empower others to break free from their own chains. Still, in the quiet moments after sharing my journey, I often felt the pangs of longing for my family. The memories of shared meals, laughter, and traditions lingered like ghosts, reminding me of what had been lost. I harbored a hope that one day they would understand my transformation, that they would see my new path as an awakening rather than a betrayal. Yet the reality of their disapproval weighed heavy on my heart. I had sacrificed the familiar for the uncertain territory of faith and truth. The rift between us felt insurmountable, and I grappled with a mix of guilt and determination. As I pushed onward in my mission, the personal cost of my choices crystallized around me. The spiritual battle I fought was made all the more urgent by the stories I encountered from others, individuals who felt disillusioned and lost in their search for meaning. I dedicated my time to supporting each one, walking beside them as they questioned the foundations of their beliefs. Together we explored the manipulation entrenched in religious narratives, acknowledging the deceptive tactics that kept us from experiencing true freedom. Our discussions became a sanctuary, a space to share authentically without fear of retribution. In each gathering, we not only confronted the realities around us, but also celebrated the awakening that had united us. The energy was palpable, fueled by shared insights and the collective yearning for truth. I embraced the role I had been given, understanding that every moment of the past had led me to this point, a place of action where I could make a tangible difference. And yet, as I forged deeper connections with my new community, the hope of reconciling with my family remained at the forefront of my mind. The journey ahead was filled with uncertainty, but the mission to unveil truth and break the chains of deception continued to propel me forward. A battle I felt destined to engage in, no matter the costs. The central message of my narrative centers around a painful truth. While religion can imprison and stifle the soul, the awakening found in Jesus offers liberation and purpose amid despair and risk. For years, I lived a life defined by the doctrines I was raised to uphold. I was a dedicated Quran teacher, steeped in the traditions of my upbringing, but as I embraced those teachings, an unsettling emptiness began to grow within me. Despite outward appearances, my heart ached for something deeper, something real. During my pilgrimage to Mecca, I hoped to find clarity among the holy sites that had drawn millions to their sacred grounds, but instead I found only confusion. As I engaged in fervent prayer, I experienced a sudden, inexplicable panic that washed over me. In the depths of that chaos, I collapsed, the weight of expectations and doubts crashing down around me. Strangely, instead of darkness, I was enveloped in a brilliant light, transporting me to an otherworldly realm that felt both comforting and empowering. It was there that I encountered Jesus, Ahmad. He called softly, and as I heard my name, every fear and doubt seemed to fall away. Jesus held me in his gaze, a look filled with love and understanding that struck deep within my core. In that moment, I felt an awakening, a revelation of the hidden agendas that govern our world. He illuminated the deception surrounding faith and power, exposing how the elite manipulate spirituality to maintain control and foster division among people. The realization hit me hard. The very systems meant to provide guidance had become instruments of oppression. As Jesus unveiled these profound truths, I witnessed the ongoing spiritual war that rages not just within individual hearts but across societies. I saw visions of conflicts perpetuated by a lack of understanding, driven by fear and ignorance. It was heartbreaking to realize how many lives were caught in this cycle, trapped under the weight of religious and societal expectations. My heart ached for everyone still lost in these shadows, and suddenly, I understood that my calling was not only to embrace the truth for myself, but to share it with others yearning for liberation. After that encounter, I awoke back in the reality of Mecca, but everything had changed. The teachings and rituals I had once held sacred felt suffocating, their truth now obscured by the light I had witnessed. I felt a powerful urge to break free from the confines of my former life, to share what I had learned and help others awaken to the truth that lay beyond dogma and fear. Yet the prospect of opposition lingered heavily in my mind. Would my family understand? Would my community accept this new path? The risks mounted, but the need to speak out against the deception and encourage others to embrace their awakening became a driving force in my life. I recognized that this was only the beginning, and I was ready to fight for the truth, even in the face of adversity. As I stand here now, reflecting on the journey I've traversed since that fateful encounter with Jesus in Mecca, I am overwhelmed by the intricacies of what unfolds in our world every day. Have you ever felt the stirrings of doubt in your own heart, a longing for a truth that transcends the confines of dogma? Perhaps you too have sensed that something greater is stirring beneath the surface, calling us all to awaken to a battle far more profound than we can fully comprehend. I once lived in the darkness of fear and tradition, a shadow of who I truly was, consumed by the weight of expectations that constrained my spirit. But the moment I encountered Jesus, everything shifted. That single instant of divine revelation awakened a courage within me that I never knew existed. It illuminated a path, a mission not just for my own liberation, but to beckon others who roam in the night, seeking a flicker of light in their own lives. Each of our stories is interconnected in this spiritual warfare. We are not alone in our struggles. So now I ask you to reflect. What truths are you withholding from yourself? In what ways might your fears be the very obstacles that keep you from stepping into your own light? I invite you to share your revelations and struggles in the comments. Every voice matters, and your experience could very well inspire someone else seeking to break free from their chains. If this message resonates with your spirit, don't let it go unheard. Subscribe to Truth from Beyond and activate the notification bell. Your willingness to stay connected is vital, as what unfolds next could be the key to your own awakening, a deeper understanding of the spiritual battle we are all part of. In our next video, we will dig even deeper into the stories of others who have dared to confront the darkness, sharing their courage and revelations. I'm Ahmed, and I want to thank you for being part of this journey today. Remember, every step you take towards the truth brings light not just into your life, but into a world desperately needing illumination. Stay brave, stay curious, and let's continue to explore this path together.